All right, and this is another talk with my father. My name is Jadan Roseborough. I'm here with my father.
Victor Fox.
And this is Samson, or the story of Samson, part two. In the first part, we covered Samson's origin in Judges chapter 13. And we talked about how he was called, about how he was unorthodox, how he wasn't your stereotypical leader, the one you would want your kids to be, but how God was the one using him. And Dad, you were comparing Samson to the nation of Israel and making comparisons to him. And your first point last time was talking about how Samson was called. Would you like to review your last point, or would you like to state another point?
Reviews are good because not only was Samson not a role model, you got others like that, like Jephthah, who was just a little bit before Samson, who supposed to have been who was that? I think his mom. Anyway, he was not well accepted because the father had a different mother from him, which would made him separate. I think from a prostitute, I think, or something along them lines, to where he was not well met with the family. But yet God used him where the family had to come to him to help them to overcome their situation. And again, these people whom God is choosing to say, these people are most not likely that you would choose, because the way that they're flawed, and Samson would be the worst one out the bunch.
That's true.
Because we're given a lot of detail from his birth to the end of his life and so forth, which is kind of tragic. And it looked like he was just not only not disobeying God, but being favorable for God, for us to be like him at the same time, which we somewhat are. But he wants us to see how you can be used, but used in a way where your participation has to be geared toward helping him. You know, he's already helping you, but he wants you to help him also by giving in from your heart, not from a stern, you better do this or else. You know, he don't want somebody to threaten you. Well, that's not a good motivation. You know, just you ought to do it because I've done stuff for you, and in return, you want to go ahead and say, you know, okay, I'm going ahead and do the favor.
Exactly.
Because I'm unworthy of this favor and so forth. You say something?
No, I said exactly. It's almost it's to the point where you should want to.
So we're seeing Samson in a time where the children of Israel did evil in the sight of God. So God is doing something to say, okay, I'm going to raise somebody up that you don't know, but you look just like them. Now, of course, they're not going to see themselves. That's the sad part. Sometimes when God sends somebody, you look just like them, and of course, in your eye, they look bad, but you're really looking at yourself. So God is saying, yeah, but I'm helping you to not be like that. And at the end, well, I don't want to go that far yet, but Samson is a very good example of how God used his people on a freedom or liberty point of view. He wants you to do it from your heart, not somebody with a stick saying you better do it, or I'm going to break your legs, or whatever the case may be. You don't want that type of obedience.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be a
You
threat.
want liberty, out of your love. Just like in the case with a queen, just like when Esther had said to the king, if it pleases, she always kind of like start, if it pleased the king. She used very soothing, graceful words, which you're supposed to be doing also, to say, and this is how you're supposed to talk to your enemy. Remember, she's a Jewish, and he didn't know it, but yet they're supposed to be opposite ends, and she just gained favor from God to deliver her people, which she didn't know it at the time, through Mordecai. He had to go ahead and tell her, well, you were put in a place for such a time as this and so forth. That's just a side note of just how you can use words gracefully to speak to people, way God, wants you to.
Yeah, it's like bringing peace to a situation. But when we talk about people who have the ability to do that, we definitely aren't talking about Samson. He's not a person who, like, he doesn't necessarily have that graceful part about him. Like, and I know you're talking about in the way that God would have us to, or approaches us. It's not like God threatens us. It's not like God like tries to force us into following him. That it's a graceful thing, and that's how we should approach other people. But when we talk about Samson, he definitely isn't one of these graceful people. Like he had a propensity for violence. He had a propensity to, like as you said, even with the women that he chose, to go after people who he probably shouldn't be going after, the same way his parents bring it up when he asked for a Philistine woman. And he tells them the reason why he wants her is because she pleases me. And so it's not as if he's wanting her for some righteous reason. Nah, he's simply wanting her because of fleshly desire.
Right. And it's supposed to be an outrage not only from the parent, but from the community. You know, to say, you know, this is not our culture. You're not supposed to go with another woman that's not within our culture and so forth. That's supposed to be an outrage. The only person who was concerned was the Philistines. You know, they're the ones that say, well, go ahead and do this, find out and so forth, this and whatnot. You don't hardly hear anything from the community outside of just the family saying, well, why don't you get somebody from our culture more so than outside of our culture and whatnot. But nevertheless, God was the one doing this because he wanted to stir things up.
So are you
so
saying
therefore,
that there was
the
supposed
Philistines
to be
had to get involved, Delilah, just to make, even though I'm kind of going ahead of the story and whatnot. But you know what I'm saying. I don't have to go no further. I'm kind of going ahead of the story.
I do have to ask. Are you saying that the community around Samson was not outraged and that they should have been?
No, it sure wasn't. It sure was not.
Okay.
It sure was not.
And so it's almost like God was showing them that, like, look, you guys, all of y'all are supposed to be mad at Samson, not just his parents. But then it's like, oh, so his parents are the only one voicing an opinion about this. Well, I guess I'll make it to where the Philistines are the ones who have to get mad about this situation. And they bring up the problem to you, and then it's like God is like going in a roundabout way to say, okay, are you guys going to do something about this? Don't y'all remember y'all ain't supposed to be associated with these people anyway?
Right. Another case in point, Hosea is the same scenario almost, where God is saying, I want Hosea to go marry a prostitute. Again, that's supposed to be unheard of. Even later on in this particular story, we see a priest who is going out with a prostitute, which was supposed to be unheard of.
Yeah.
So once you see that God is saying, I see this what's going on, but I'm trying to address it at the same time. So now let me jump into the New Testament just to show you another
Go right ahead.
scenario, which is, to me, overlooked. When you see how God showed you how the children of Israel look, it don't look good. And even where we are right now in the book of Judges and Samson, God is saying the children did evil in my sight.
Again.
Right away, we're talking about the children of Israel. So it carried on all the way to Malachi, where Malachi said, I love you to the people. And he said, where have you loved us? He said, Jacob I love, and Esau hated. You know, Esau no longer around, and, you know, you still here and so forth.
Yeah.
So we can see how they are so disrespectful. He said, where's my honor? You're not even giving me honor. Disrespectful that he said, okay, you are, curse is getting ready to come if you don't get right. I'm going to send Elijah, the spirit of Elijah, and if he can't turn the heart of the children back to the father and the father back to the children, now we can see again the position of the children of Israel is not looking good. Now,
it's looking pretty grim.
Once I get into the New Testament, and those remnant who did convert themselves to Christian, this is how they talk. Oh, you Gentile, you got to be like us. Oh, no, you don't. Oh, no, you don't. See, they forget how they was looking. They think that since they had the law, oh, we were looking good. No, you wasn't.
No, exactly.
If it wasn't for God's grace, you would not even be here. That's why this is what Romans is really talking about. Because he said, don't get on the Gentiles. Don't think because you're circumcised that you're so much better. That ain't got nothing to do with it. You are only here by the grace of God. That's why I bring in Abraham. Abraham was declared righteous because he believed. Don't talk about this law stuff. Because it was only through the grace of God that you're here, and now it's turning over to the Gentile. So be glad that you're here right along with the Gentiles. Don't be so high and mighty because you had the law first, because believe me, you was not looking good.
It's one of those things where it's like he was trying to humble them, and they didn't know how to accept the humbling. That's
big time.
It's in a way that's where the modern state of Christianity is in a lot of ways. There's a lot of holier than thou. Like that's one of the main feelings that you get when someone talks about talking to a Christian. It's that they feel holier than thou, or that they feel better than, like it's almost as if they look down upon someone who is not, or someone who is even just beginning, or someone who doesn't know as much as them. That there is that feeling of, I can't even think of the word.
We got two stories that shows that when two guys went up to pray, the Republican and the tax collector. The tax collector said, "God have mercy on me, a sinner." The Republican said, "I'm glad I'm not like him. I pay my tithes and so forth." And God was saying, "Who do you think God was hearing?" Okay, that's one scenario. Then we got this woman who put in 2 mites.
Yeah, the widow woman.
She said, he pointed out, the woman again, she did a whole lot more than those others who put in all this, so forth and so forth and so forth. So again, the humbleness of what God looked at more so than as you call it, the high and mighty and so forth. And if you do high and mighty, you got to bring it down. You got to humble yourself, because He gives grace to the humble and resist the proud, as you know.
Yeah. Well, what is it that they're only? What is it? The lust of the flesh, the pride of the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That's the only thing that.
Right.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you have to watch yourself. The pride of life is so easy to slip into, because as soon as you look at yourself as, well, at least I'm not in any situation, which that's what makes it so hard, is because when someone's telling you to find the silver lining in a bad situation, that's essentially you going, yes, I know this situation is bad, but hey, it could be worse. That's you saying, well, at least I'm not, and you're thinking of whatever that worst situation is, and so it's so easy to slip into. It's, in a way, it allows you to not accept where you are. When you go, well, at least I'm not in this situation, it takes you from thinking about the situation that you're actually in, from experiencing and allowing God to handle the situation that you're actually in. You take yourself off to a fantasy land where, oh yeah, things could be way worse, and oh man, I feel way better about myself because I know there's someone out there going through this horrible thing. But you don't allow yourself to truly go through what you're going through. You don't allow God to really handle it. You just get caught up in the fact that you're not somebody else. And it's the pride of life. It's the little things, the details. It's never, what is it? The devil comes to you as an angel of light. It's never something huge and obvious. It's the subtle things. It's like at the end of Devil's Advocate, when he thinks he's doing something good, and then Al Pacino shows up again, and he's like, vanity, my favorite. He's like, it's when you think, oh yes, I can finally rest, is when it's like, I gotcha, I gotcha. But that's what makes it very, very interesting, is that in a way, Samson's not concerned about any of that stuff. Samson's almost concerned with just living, which is weird to say, but that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, let me bring in Abraham, because I remember we were talking about Abraham one time, and I failed to bring in the steps. God used Abraham as a model, reason why he's called the father of the faith, because he used him as a model as he left his home where he's on a direction where he don't know where he's going. The Bible says the steps of the Lord. Oh my goodness.
It's the steps of
forgot
the
the rest of the
righteous
verse.
are ordered by the Lord.
Anyway, he directs he directs our steps.
Yeah.
So just as Abraham is being directed by God, not knowing where he's going, he has to operate it by faith. At the same time, God is going to put you in a situation where it's not favorable. The first thing that happened when he had left, a famine, So next thing you know, he got to deal with, I got to go to Egypt, and these people, they don't know me and so forth. There's no fear of God and whatnot, even though he was wrong on that. It was a fear of God. So he had deceived, Pharaoh to think, or Abimelech, I forgot which one, to think that he was not married. So he had to deceive him. So Abimelech or Pharaoh was thinking that, okay, so she's free game. So just as he's getting ready to take her, God had to step in and say, if you touch her, you're a dead man, because that's the man's wife. And that's when he said, well, I didn't know, because he was deceived. He said, and I know you didn't know. He said, but now you know, and if you touch her, you're going to be surely die. But anyway, I'm just saying that just as an example of God used Abraham as steps to take where you're going to go in a situation, and you have to allow God to work things out for the good. That's why you can count it all joy when you come in different situations, because you don't know how God's going to handle things. And James always say if it's the Lord's will, to have any plan and so forth, because God may put you in a whole different scenario where even though it might not be right in your eyes, but God has a way of just, turning it around for the good. So he gets the praise, for everything and whatnot. Just as in this case with Samson, God had really somewhat directed his steps, even though we don't see him participating in a positive way, more in a negative way, but still God used it for his glory. That's the beauty of it, believe it or not. That's really the beauty of it. So nobody can be ashamed to say, I know I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. God got example. Samson be a clear example of he didn't do what he's supposed to do, but then God, it just show you how God can still work with you. This is where that verse that says, if you have faith, if I'm not mistaken, the size of a mustard seed,
that you can move mountains.
I think that's where that phrase goes.
Yeah, it's faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. And I believe the scripture you were talking about earlier, it could be a couple of different ones, but I think it might be Psalms 37:23. The Lord directs the steps of the godly. He delights in every detail of their lives. When they stumble, they will not fall, for the Lord holds them by the hand. The steps of the godly, to be godly means that we obey and follow God. Yeah, that was like someone describing the verse at the end of it.
Right. And see, remember, you're going through it blindly. You're not seeing. Faith is something thing hoping for, but no evidence of things seen. So as long as you know the Lord is directing your step, then you can say like David, though I walk, which is another term for your life, the way you live, you're walking through life. Though I walk through the valley of death, I will fear no evil. So now he's talking like a shepherd and a sheep, because the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me beside still waters. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thy rod and thy staff, what the shepherd does do to a sheep, go over here, no, go over here. That rod and that staff, they comfort me. Well, that's a spiritual metaphor where you have to have it in your mind, because you don't literally feel that rod telling you to go this way and telling you to go that way. You have like earlier, something telling me to do this, something telling me to do that, because remember, just as he told Elijah, it was that small, still voice. So sometimes you just got to pay attention to it. You're not going to be yelling it out, saying, no, stop. You're not going to be talking like that.
Well, let's go on to Samson chapter 14, because it talks about, you
Okay.
mentioned Samson not doing what he was supposed to do. And at the very beginning of the 14th chapter, and I'm just going to read a little bit in, and we can kind of summarize from there. It goes, and Samson went down to Tanath and saw a woman in Tanath of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Tanath of the daughter of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Then his father and mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughter of thy brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. But his father and mother knew not that it was the Lord that he sought an occasion against the Philistines. For at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Then when Samson went down, and his father and his mother, to Tanath, and they came to the vineyards of Tanath, and behold, a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he rent him as if he had rent a kid, which is like a young goat. And he had nothing in his hand, but he told not his father or his mother what he had done. And he went down and talked to the woman, and she pleased Samson well. And after a time he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. And he took thereof in his hands, and went on eating, and came to his father and his mother, and he came to them, and they did eat. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. And so, after that beginning part of that chapter, we can kind of summarize. After this, that's when Samson gets married to this Philistine woman. And at the wedding party, which there were a lot of other Philistine men there, they did which was customary apparently at that time, to do a riddle. And he told them if the men could figure out the riddle, that he would give them each a garment, and that if they couldn't figure out the riddle, that they would have to each give him a garment. And there were 30 of them there. And he told them a riddle of it's like, what sweet thing comes from the eater? Out of the eater comes something sweet. And they couldn't figure it out. And so that's when you say, like, this is the first time we see someone go to the woman in Samson's life and kind of coerce her into telling them something that Samson is trying to keep hidden.
Okay. In the beginning of that story, I want you to see something that is not supposed to be. But God is the one involved in it. The Philistines and the Jews are not supposed to be mingling together. Remember, when God had told them to go in the land of Canaan, I don't want you to be involved in these people. So as you can see, now they're involved, so much so that God can just raise up somebody very easily and just pick a woman, and there's no outrage. And remember, God is not saying, oh, yeah, by the way, he's going to go to the Philistine and they're going to you're going to get a wife. He didn't tell them. If anything, he said, I want you to make them a Nazarite. That means he's supposed to be more so dedicated to the Jewish community,
Yeah, he's supposed to be so a Jew amongst the Jews.
That's one of the stipulations. He's not supposed to touch no dead bodies and so forth. That's why he didn't tell his father, because he knew that. Where you get this from? I got it from a dead body. Oh, no, I can't touch it. That's unclean. So not only is he doing things that he's not supposed to do, and God's involved as far as that woman goes. So when you see that it was a party or a feast, kind of like a marriage feast, the Philistine and the Jews are not supposed to be there, and you see more of the Gentiles than anything. So here, this is where God is using him to say, you know what? I'm getting ready to I'm gonna make you guys pay for being here, so to speak. That's why he told them that riddle. So, if I'm not mistaken, in their response, they felt disrespected.
Yeah,
you
they
mean
felt
tell me
insulted.
you're going to make us come to a wedding feast and you're going to make us pay for something, for something that's supposed to be a happy situation? Well, again, that's God doing, because that's supposed to be a slap in the face, where you're going to have somebody come and make them pay more than really what they were supposed to pay. I mean, it was kind of like outrageous what he wanted to do and so forth. So that's why they said, "Oh, you're gonna have to, tell us this secret, because we're not going to be disrespected like that."
That's why they came to
but
his wife in that way. Yeah.
I want you to see basically on how there was no outrage, like, you shouldn't even come to this party here, because it's not supposed to be. You're not supposed to be marrying, a woman like this. But you can see how, even though they said it at first, they kind of like went along with it. So that's why God kind of like gave a slap in the face with that. Well, let's make them pay for just being here. And that's why we see that riddle and how it became a big thing of how they respond in a negative way.
Yeah, it says, and it came to pass on the seventh day that they said unto Samson's wife, entice thy husband that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee in thy father's house with fire. Have ye called us to take that we have? Is it not so? And it says, and Samson's wife wept before him and said, dost thou hate me and lovest not? Thou hast put forth the riddle unto the children of my people and have not told it to me. And he said to her, behold, I have not told it to my father nor my mother. Shall I tell it to thee? And she wept before him the 7 days while the feast lasted. And it came to pass on the seventh day that he told her, because she lay sore upon him. And she told the riddle to the children of the people. And the men of the city came unto him on the seventh day, and on the seventh day before the sun went down. What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said unto them, if thou had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle.
Yeah, a heifer is a working animal.
Yeah,
that's why he called her a heifer.
Cow, yeah.
You know, she's supposed to be like a worker. It's not like he was putting her down or anything like that. That was like a, she is my worker and so forth. And, Proverbs had said a nagging wife is like a drip, something else. You rather be in the attic more so than have a nagging wife. So as she kept on nagging him, that's why he finally gave in. Because remember also that that wicked king didn't have no respect for man or God, and the woman kept trying to be an advocate for her son, and he had said, you give her what she wants because she wearies me,
Yeah.
So Proverbs said it best on how, as long as the woman keep nagging, you almost do anything just to get that peace. And that's why he kind of gave in.
So is this Samson's real?
Same thing. Tell me.
Is this Samson's real weakness though? It's not the hair.
I think it's man period. I think it's man period.
Like men period.
Man period.
That this is this is our weakness period as men.
Oh yeah. No man. When his wife constantly nagging, especially the same thing, and he's saying no, constantly.
It says though that the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ascalon, which is a Philistine city, and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave change of garments unto them which expounded the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, whom he had used as his friend, which is like his best man.
Right. I want to add also, you're going to see it later, but it's good to go ahead and see it now. So when you see it later, you can appreciate it. Even when, now you got to know, in Samson's mind, even when I do wrong, God's Spirit comes upon me. When I touch that dead carcass, I was not supposed to, that's part of your Nazarite body, not supposed to touch the dead body. So as he did it, it was no consequences. If anything, God, it's almost like he rewarded him, saying, when he went and gave it to his father, and he didn't tell his father, because he knew that was wrong, it was no consequences. Yeah, Samson, when he was doing wrong, there were no consequences. What we had said earlier in part 1, God is showing them how they look, without them knowing it. And really, as a reader, we can see how they look through Samson. Because when they did do wrong, there were no quick consequences of their action, even as we speak here in Samson, where we at right now. They did evil in the sight of God. There's no consequences. So just as Samson is going to touch a dead body, and he knows it's wrong, the very reason why he didn't tell his father where he got it from, because he knew it was wrong. He supposed to be undefiled. He supposed to be defiled right there. At the same time, we can see the Spirit of God still coming on him, as though he could say, man, I can do anything I want. I can do things I'm not supposed to do. And he knows it's not. Again, the very reason why he tells his father, I got some honey, but he didn't tell him where it's from, because he knew that it was wrong. Now, he knows he's doing something that's wrong, that in his eyes, I mean, I can do wrong, and God still is with me because he just got finished dealing with a lion that he knows that he's not doing that. God is doing that. And of course, I'm pretty sure they told him the story of how he came about and so forth, just like the children of Israel. They knew the story of their history from Sarah having being barren and so forth, and having a baby at a late age and so forth, and then finally Isaac came, the promised seed and so forth. The next thing you know, Isaac had two children, Esau and Jacob and whatnot. The story goes on. But then when you get to them really where they at now, again, no consequences on both of them, neither the children of Israel nor Samson. So as Samson says, well, his action is doing it. I'm doing something that's wrong, and the Spirit of God is still on me. And the reason why I'm making a point now, because later on when it said, and he did not know that the Lord was not with him. Because before, he can do anything he wants when it's wrong, and God's with him. That's why I can just shake myself and the Lord would just come. He's been doing it all along. I just wanted to make that point right quick.
Well, that's a perfect point for us to end on for this one. And this is part 2 of our story of Samson. And once again, this is a talk with my father. My name is Jaydan Roseborough, and I'm here with my father,
Mr. Parks.
And this is part 2 of our talk on Samson.